The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Rutland again, everybody. Now, if you mention a reservoir here, everyone's going to think of Rutland Water. But did you know that Rutland has a second, lesser known reservoir? It's there, behind me. And it's actually on the border between Rutland and Leicestershire. That there is Eyebrook Reservoir, which you can find in the parish of Stoke Dry. Stoke Dry, outlying farm near or on dry land. This weekend we make a return to Rutland to take on two parishes that sit right on the southern boundary of the county. In tomorrow's episode we'll be in the most southerly parish in Rutland, but before we can get there we have the small matter of Stoke Dry first. This is one of the smallest villages in Rutland, possessing a mere 14 houses. Of course, it's not the smallest, I mean compared to Martinsthorpe, this is huge. Stoke Dry is about 3 miles southwest of Uppingham, and its name is a little bit ironic really these days. Stoke Dry means outlying farm near or on dry land, but the valley it sits close to is now anything but dry. When it was founded centuries ago, its name would have maybe made a bit of sense. Positioned on a hill, it was likely dry because the valley would have been marshy. Hence this was literally dry land. The marsh was later drained, leaving Stoke Dry even drier, with a lot of rich arable farmland where the water once was. However, these days the valley is back to being wet again because in 1937 it was flooded to create Rutland's other reservoir. Yep, that's right, long before Rutland Water was ever a thing in this county, Stoke Dry had the Eyebrook. Today it's the county's much lesser known man-made lake, but you could say it was the OG. Eyebrook Reservoir played a key role in Rutland's history, not only providing water to the locals, but also aiding the famous 617 Dambuster Squadron with a practice ground for their Lancaster bombers. And not a lot of people know that. Stoke Dry is often overlooked. I'm going to right that wrong. Let's go. This is what Stoke Dry looked like in 1900. It's a deceptively tall parish when you consider its length from north to south. As such, not all of it can be seen on this map. Handily though, the village itself is so small that the bits you can't see here are just basically farmland. And speaking of farmland, it used to surround Stoke Dry on all sides. That's not the case today. Whilst this is still very much a farming community with lots of arable land, a lot was lost between 1937 and 1941 when this western edge of the parish was flooded. Ironically then, Stoke Dry is not very dry anymore, although the village remains high above the water in the valley. It consists of basically one single street, which contains most, if not all of its residences, and the church. Let's zoom in and see things a bit more clearly. Right, so here we have the western edge of the parish as it was in 1900, and there is a huge difference between this and the present day. It's all fields, with a stream called the Eyebrook, or the River Eye, running through it. It was totally dry other than the river. It's anything but these days. The valley of the Eyebrook began to be flooded in 1937. The result is this, the Eyebrook Reservoir. Completed in 1941, this was Rutland's original reservoir, built way before the much better known Rutland Water was even thought about. The reservoir covers some 497 acres and is a designated biological site of special scientific interest. When it was completed, the weather at the time caused it to freeze, turning it into a huge natural ice rink. Despite being flooded to form the reservoir, the Eyebrook still remains to this day the border between Leicestershire and Rutland. That means the reservoir straddles the border itself, although most of it is within Stoke Dry. It was built initially to supply water, like most reservoirs are. Doubtlessly, it served several residential areas, but its main purpose was to provide water to Corby Iron and Steel Works, just to the south in Northamptonshire. It's not the largest reservoir ever built, and so when it was constructed, the locals welcomed it, with many saying it added great beauty to many miles of countryside out here. It still does look rather pretty, doesn't it? Given it's in a valley, if you view it from the right direction, usually looking westward, the landscape around Eyebrook Reservoir provides you with a vista which wouldn't look out of place in Switzerland, according to many. During World War II, Eyebrook Reservoir had another purpose. In May of 1943, it served as a practice site for the famous 617 Squadron dambuster raids, standing in for the Moan Reservoir. By the shoreline of Eyebrook today, a plaque commemorates this piece of history. The reservoir is an important site for wintering wildfowl such as widgeon, teal, mallard and pochard. Eyebrook is also a popular trout fishing venue, regularly stocked as it is with triploid rainbow trout. It also has a native brown trout population. Fly fishing for pike also takes place here too. Due to the fishery, there is no public access to the reservoir, but you can still see it from the roadside here. There's also a public footpath which runs along part of the eastern side. Eyebrook Reservoir might not be as big or as famous as Rutland Water, but its importance can never be questioned. So this reservoir is nowhere near as big as Rutland Water, but I tell you something, if you stand next to it like I am right here, it looks a lot bigger than it actually does on the map. So let's see if Stoke Dry Village also fits that bill. To get to Stoke Dry, we've got to make our way from the reservoir up a big hill, which I've driven down already this morning. It's up there. The village is literally up that hill. It's going to be a little bit of an uphill slog actually by the time we've driven up there, because I'm going to walk from one end of the village to the other, and there is going to be a hill involved, whichever way I do it. Let's get up there and see it. Stoke Dry has never been a big village. Since these times, it hasn't grown all that much. Most, if not all, of these buildings are still here, including the Church of St Andrew. When it was founded centuries ago, it would literally have been on a piece of dry land above the marshy valley below. Aside from being the location of the Eyebrook Reservoir and all the history that goes with that, Stoke Dry has its own bits to tell us. Granted, it's not much of a village, having only 14 houses, but it's still worthy of a little walk from one end of it to the other. So, with only 14 houses, this doesn't have a massive population. Indeed, in 2007, Stoke Dry could only muster a total of 39 people living within its modest collection of dwellings. The population remained less than 100 at both the 2011 and the 2021 censuses. It has a few claims to fame, this place. For one, in 2009, the village was one of three, the other two being Liddington and Thorpe by Water, which became the first in the UK to benefit from superfast broadband using something called sub-loop unbundling. Technical jargon, no idea. It can also lay claim to something else, but this is far less of a concrete fact. Often dismissed as a complete myth, some theories suggest that the conspirators of the Gunpowder plot in 1605 met in a small room above the church's porch. The only basis for the claim is that the manor here was once part of the estate of Sir Everard Digby, and as we know, he was involved with the plot. I too reckon it's complete hogwash, because we've already covered a lot of other places that were connected to the plot, and that's for certain. However, there is one thing that might sway it in favour of Stoke Dry. Just down the road, there's a village in Northamptonshire called Ashby St Ledgers. Many historians believe the plot was hatched in the manor house there. With this being so close, the claim is not totally impossible. So as you see, it's not the biggest village in the world, is it? But there are some beautiful buildings here. Here's a good example of one. That's the old rectory. And that building is right next to the church, which you can see here. So let's see the church. Dedicated to St Andrew, this is the place where supposedly the Gunpowder plot conspirators met. Like I said, it's completely unverified, but I can give you some hard facts about this place. First of all, it's a Grade 1 listed building. The church is made up of a chancel, a south chapel, a porch with a parvis above it, a nave and two aisles. The parvis above the porch was built to be a chamber for the priest, and it's in there where the plot was supposedly hatched, so says the implausible rumour. The The chapel and the north wall of the chancel here have Norman stonework. The chancel arch contains Norman carvings on the shafts either side of the arch. On the south shaft is a man pulling on a bell rope. You can also see a 15th century carved screen here too, positioned either side of the chancel and the nave. It doesn't fit very well, so the experts on this kind of thing reckon it might have been moved here from a different church. On the bier next to the Norman font is a Bible and a prayer book dating from 1856. The bier itself dates from 1694. Monuments and memorials wise, this one has quite a few. One is a fragment of stone thought to memorialise Francis Clark of Stoke Dry, who died in 1435. The chancel has a table tomb to Kenelm Digby and his family. There's also a table tomb to Everard Digby, not the one we spoke about in Tilton on the Hill. There's also a monument to Jaquetta, his wife, who died at the Battle of Towton in 1641. They are in the Digby Chapel. The south wall of the Digby Chapel has 13th century wall paintings depicting the death of Edmund the Martyr and Jesus being carried by St Christopher. St Edmund is shown tied to a stake, whilst archers shoot arrows at him. Aside from the quality of the painting and their unusually well-preserved state, it's the likenesses of the bowmen that draw attention from scholars around the world. Though the church guide calls them Danish, a more fanciful interpretation is that the archers represent American Indians. Other points of interest around the church include the upright organ dating to 1810. That was made by Lincoln of London and is worth noting because so few organs from that date remain in their original condition. So whether or not you believe the whole gunpowder plot thing here is entirely up to you. It's one of those legends that has a little bit of credence to it, but it's never been proven. So we are pretty much done with Stoke Dry at this point. I just have one more thing I want to do before I leave this place, and that's leave one of my cards on the parish notice board, which is right outside the church. Annoyingly, this is not a pin board, so it's just going to have to sit on top of it somewhere. Probably just there. I'll sort it out in a moment. I've only got one hand because I've got one hand on the card and one hand on the camera. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. And so people, that's the parish of Stoke Dry. It might not be very dry these days thanks to the Eyebrook Reservoir, but that, along with its lofty perch and its dubious claim to gunpowder plot fame, helped to put the village firmly on the map. Time to head south now to the very edge of Rutland. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.